Good morning and welcome to another ironic introduction to another video. Don't mind me in the background, I'm just finishing up grinding a just rank reward milestone for the 5-star featured. I can't really participate or compete for any of the rewards, but that base reward is 200 5-star shards and I want them. I can comfortably grab that million points, so I'm going to do so. That said, the purpose of this video is I want to talk about prioritizing your time. I realize that not everybody is as committed to spending hours and hours playing this game as I am, and so if you only have an hour or maybe an hour and a half throughout the day to play, you really want to make sure you're optimizing the way you spend your time for the long run, right? You don't want to find yourself stuck in the arena for an hour and a half every day if that's all the time you're spent playing. Honestly, you're better off doing other things. So the way I would prioritize my time if I was playing for an hour and a half a day is I would start by utilizing my energy on the limited event. And the reason I would do that is because it's a limited event. It's not something you'll have access to for a prolonged period of time. So you want to milk it for as many rewards as possible before it disappears. Because once it's gone, those are rewards you can't get back. The thing about the rest of the content is it's relatively static, and I realize you might not have access to grinding champions in the arena in the future, but for the most part, the rest of the content of the game is static, and it's accessible at any other point. So for grinding the limited event, I would highly suggest full clear or full exploration rewards, the highest difficulty you can. And once you've done that, I would suggest going down and doing just a nice completion run of all the difficulties below, because you're going to generate more units than you would spend on energy refills completing those, as well as the rewards, are relatively free at that point. If essentially you're generating, enough units to do free refills and then you just get rewards, it's just a time sink at that point. But the rewards, even though they're not amazing as you go down, because obviously if you're at a point where you can clear a higher difficulty, you probably don't need the lower rewards, they're still very good in general. And that said, after you've done your full completion run, your exploration run of the highest difficulty you can, and when I say can, I mean without revives and health potions, maybe like 1 or 2 throughout the whole difficulty, but for the most part, you want to be able to do it without using revives or health potions, as it gets me to this next part, where if you can do it with limited revives and limited potions, I would do a completion run of the next difficulty up, as you can score those just completion run rewards. And I would say maybe if it costs you 1 or 2 revives per quest, it would be worth it. As long as you kind of like eyeball the rewards and make sure you're not just getting ISO for your time and energy. Next, I would say spend your energy on upgrade materials. Don't grind the tier 4 basics or the T3 class catalysts, but anything below that is definitely worth energy investment. It's just that the T4 basics and the T3 class catalysts, right now that daily quest is just really inefficient, and I think that if you need those materials, I understand, because those are what's gating me as well, but those quests are just so energy efficient. I find that they're not good for anyone except for people who are willing to spend money on energy refills. But if you are willing to spend money on energy refills, then go ahead and grind those all you'd like if that's what's gating you. Next, I would spend your energy on the story. Yes, so the first priority in general is energy, and as well the subcategory is where you should spend your energy first. Spend your energy on the story, and when you're grinding the story, I would highly recommend you go as far as you can with your roster and your skill, and you just kind of keep going until you hit that skill wall where you're like, nope, can't complete this without using a bunch of revives. And then you go back and you start doing exploration runs of the previous act. So ideally, you should be able to get to at least Act 4 off like a base roster. If you are having trouble doing that, I would maybe kind of evaluate your roster and see if maybe you need to rank people up first, or maybe if you're ranking up the wrong people, check out like a tier list or something and see if, maybe you're not playing what's optimal for damage or utility, etc. So ideally you should be able to clear at least up to Act 4, and then if you're stuck on Act 4, go ahead and do a full exploration of Act 3. But if you're stuck on Act 3, I would highly recommend that you do not do a full exploration of Act 2. Just go back to Act 1 and do an exploration of that. The energy cost is really low, and the amount of time it would take you to full clear that is, I would say, valuable for the rewards you're going to get, but hopefully you are able to reach Act 4, and if you're stuck there, you'll be full completing Act 3. After utilizing your energy in that manner, I would suggest spending your time on Alliance Quest or Alliance War, as I believe these are your best source of upgrade materials consistently. You can spend glory on upgrade materials, which is what I would recommend you do. And this will eventually help your progression in the long run. It might help you bridge that skill gap as your roster becomes stronger, your pool of champions have more stats, your pool grows bigger. You're going to find that clearing story does become easier to an extent. I mean, it does kind of tap off. You're not going to be able to upgrade forever because the cost of upgrading does kind of exponentially increase as you go. But once you've done Alliance Quest and Alliance War, I would say you could debatably spend your time on dungeons. Dungeons are weird because the reward is not immediate, right? You do have to spend quite a bit of time actually doing it. I'd say if you can group up with like an alliance member or something, or find someone on Facebook or in a Discord chat that you can comfortably pace through those dungeons, in one sitting, that would be the ideal way to do that. But those rewards are still strong. You do get guaranteed all the way up to 4 stars. I personally would recommend saving for the 4-star, as getting a guaranteed 3-star, unless you're really, really struggling with progression, is really not ideal. But the thing about the dungeons is that reward payoff is a really long kind of term investment. And so if you're kind of on a limited time, I would say unless you're in a position where you can coordinate with someone and pound it out in like 1 day's worth of session time, I would probably just ignore it for the most part until you are able to commit more time to the game. But maybe that evaluation is wrong. If you disagree, feel free to comment on why you think the dungeon is worth it, or maybe you have a strategy for getting those points incredibly quickly. But I find when I do the dungeon, it does take me, an hour plus, perhaps just because I'm slow and I suck, or perhaps because I'm doing it wrong. To be fair, I haven't done it in a couple weeks just because it was the beginning half of the month, and dungeons belong to the second half. So we'll see if this next set of dungeons is quicker, and maybe I'll change my mind. But after Alliance War, Alliance Quest, and potentially dungeons, I would say spend your time in versus. And if you're on a limited time, right, you're probably, sitting with like 20 to 30 minutes left at this point to play the game. I would say start grabbing the ranked milestone reward, right? You want to start grabbing the minimums, and I would start with whatever highest one for sure you can grab, and then work your way down before you start working on other milestones, because that first ranked milestone is really easy to get for the most part. And if it's hard for you to get and it's time intensive for you to get, then move an arena down, as you want to be going for the ones that are easy for you to obtain if you're on a limited time. And then once you've grabbed all the milestones you can, I would start grabbing the rank milestones you can. I would start grabbing, just milestones in general for whatever arena you can comfortably grind. If you have a large pool of 4 stars, you can go ahead and grind the milestones in either the 4-star featured or the 4-star basic. And if you don't have a large pool of 4 stars, I would advise doing the 3-star featured. I really feel like those milestones are very accessible to people. I find the cutoff is abnormally low for beginner and intermediate brackets. And these characters are still really powerful even as a 3-star, so I don't see why the cutoff is so low, but I'm not going to complain about that. And you get some nice rewards, not to mention units, right? And the units will pay off in the long run when you find yourself sitting on a large stockpile of them and are able to start pumping up your masteries, which will help you progress through the game very quickly. And I think it's overall just a very good investment. So that said, I would highly suggest that you take Arena as an opportunity to multitask. I don't think that unless you're going for a character, I don't see any strong value in like highly intensely focusing on your arena for the entire time. I think that as you get higher in your streak, it's important that you do use versus, because it's a great way to practice. Like when you are going up against higher PI opponents, it's a great way to practice. But these lower PI opponents, you can see that I don't even really have to pay attention to the game because I can just tap the screen and win the fight. And that's not going to teach you anything. So you don't really want to learn muscle memory on how to just, pulverize a weak opponent. You really want to only focus on the stronger battles where you might actually learn timings and reactions and stuff. And I think that's really where the value comes in. But if you spend your time during arena looking up gameplay videos, looking up tier lists, you can learn a lot about the game, and you might actually find you have like a diamond in your roster that you wouldn't be aware of, because some of those like really powerful characters in this game require a abnormal play style from like the standard, combo, block, parry, and dexterity. One example is Quake. If you look up gameplays on her, I think Dork Lessons does my favorite, I want to say. If I'm wrong about that, I apologize to the original creator for the guide for her. But I love the term Quake and Bake or Quake and Shake. And her strategy is that you never actually hit your enemy. You hold your heavy attack for damage. You use dexterity to dodge, and she auto evades, and she just kind of permanently, passively damages your opponent over time. They never gain special. It's absolutely crazy. If you don't know what Quake does, I highly advise you look her up because she's totally awesome. Other than that, there's like Stark Spidey, right? If you don't build up poise charges, you don't really realize how much damage he does. Hella, if you don't hold your heavy attack, you don't realize that you can build up a Fury charge. Nebula, who you have to hold block in order to get the most value out of her. Those kinds of things, these play styles, you might find that you have this really strong champion that can help you progress through the game. And I think that the arena is a really good time to kind of go through that, as you'll be playing through your roster as you go, so you'll kind of get acquainted with who you own, and just looking up a tier list, and every time you pick your 3, just kind of looking and finding where that person is on the tier list can save you a lot of time in the future, and a lot of effort grinding. So that said, I hope that this kind of incentivizes you to prioritize your time. And even if you play more than an hour and a half a day, I think that you can gain a lot by prioritizing your time. Even I prioritize my gameplay. Like I'm reaching pretty close to full on energy here, so I might pop a boost and try to proc a level here before I go to sleep. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much you play this game, time is your most limited resources, right? Like we can complain about energy, we can complain about units, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to time, right? If I had an infinite amount of time, I could grind arena forever, and the only thing holding me back from competing and getting every single character would be my roster. So that said, no matter how much time you have, I would say generally follow this list of priorities, as you find that in the long run, you really want to maximize your rewards from your playing, and you don't have to. If you're like, I hate doing arena, don't touch it. If you're like, this event is too hard and I hate it, it's boring, don't do it. You don't need those rewards. At the end of the day, if part of this game is something you detest, don't do it. But if you love all aspects of this game like I do, and you want to make the most of your time, I think this priority list is a good way to focus. That said, I will talk to you later.